Talofa YouTube. Man, what a whirlwind trip. This has been an utterly bonkers Olympic experience. And it started off with a huge opening ceremonies reception. The reaction to that was very unexpected. I thought it would just be a little blip on the 24-hour news cycle, but it has really sustained interest, and it's been overwhelming and completely mind-blowing in so many ways. But I did want to make a video and describe some of that opening ceremony experience, talk about my race a little bit as well too, and just touch base in the midst of this ridiculously nutty whirlwind that this experience has been. So to start things off, I had to wait till my race was over just to have some time and get a break to breathe and finally respond to some of you guys. Thank you all for watching that last video. The Olympic tour video was a great success and I hope you enjoyed it. The race itself, that was a huge success as well. I finished in 19th place, which met and exceeded my goal. Top 20 was the goal, and to actually bump up and finish in 19th place to beat Blake Enzi of the Canadian team, a good racer, young racer with a lot of potential, to get him for that spot. It made me very happy. It was a great closing to my skeleton career. That was my last competitive skeleton run. And to do this on my tiny budget with very intermittent support the whole way, I couldn't be happier with that. And especially at my age too, and with how technology driven the sport is, with all the aerodynamics and the fancy sled and runner equipment, to finish top 20, to make the final round was fantastic. I'm over the moon. Anyway, back to what probably caught more people's attention. It was the opening ceremony. So as a review though, this is what I looked like for opening ceremony. It was a very traditional Samoan attire. The outfit was done in conjunction with a team of cultural experts. We wanted to do something that was highly reminiscent of the Polynesian and Samoan specifically culture. And it worked wonderfully. So I've got all the different pieces here, and I'll take you through what the different pieces are in a moment. But wanted to get some of the obvious questions out of the way, which the first one I think is, was I cold? It was -5 Celsius, I'm told, somewhere in the 20s on the Fahrenheit scale. And I was not wearing a shirt. I was wearing a bunch of baby oil that had been slathered on top of me, and that was about it as far as the upper body skin coverage went. Luckily, I was not that cold. The only thing that got really cold were my hands, because the flag was made out of metal, and unlike in Tokyo where the flagpole was made out of plastic, the metal conducts heat much more quickly, and my hands were cold in about 30 seconds. And I actually had to hand it off to somebody else who had gloves on just to warm my hands up a little bit, and then was able to grab it just before I walked into the stadium. My core body temperature surprisingly stayed really fine. I didn't feel that cold at all, and I'm very happy for that too, because it was chilly. And I think the fact that you were inside the bird's nest, so there was no wind there, and there wasn't any real noticeable wind chill, that certainly helped a lot too. And I did a bunch of jumping jacks, was jumping up and down, trying to do a full warm-up inside a big coat to keep me warm beforehand, and I think that helped tremendously. Basically, I was trying to get warm and sweaty before I took the jacket off so that I would feel relieved and feel refreshed actually with the cold air, and by and large it worked out really well. Now let's see, let's take you through actually through one other piece before I get to the individual items. I did want to share this really cool cartoon that came out of that show. The reception in China has just been overwhelming. It's been, I sort of became this overnight star, and it was totally unexpected. And our NOC assistants here that are Chinese, they're Chinese volunteers, they've been telling me all these different stories and all these different reactions from the Chinese people, and it's been really bizarre. I was told that on the night of the opening ceremony on Weibo, the Chinese Twitter-like platform, I was the #4 trending hashtag in the entire country, which is absurd when there's over 1 billion people here. And then so all this feedback has just been overwhelming, and they were cluing me into it. And I tried to stay as shielded as possible in the Olympic Village simply because I wanted to focus on my race, and that's my profession and what I took very seriously. And so I tried to stay away from it as much as possible. But one thing that did sneak through that was shown to me by the NOC assistant was this adorable cartoon of me at opening ceremonies. And so it has the full outfit, and I just thought this was really, really cute. And so I actually asked our NOC assistant to get in touch with the artist. Her English name is Christy. She's from Hunan province. And then I asked the IOC if I could put this design on my sled. Originally, they forbid imagery of a person on any sporting equipment. I actually used to have a photo of my face on my helmet, and I had to remove that for the Olympic rules. This is actually the image that I had to pluck from my helmet and then replace it with what I did end up competing on, simply because the IOC doesn't allow photos or imagery of people. However, they said that because this is a cartoon, it's not an exact replica of me, and it's enough of an artistic interpretation that they allowed it. So I actually put her design on my sled, and I was able to slide with it and compete with that on my sled at the Olympics, which I thought was a really nice gesture of the IOC to allow it, considering it didn't break any of their rules. And on top of that, I thought it was just something nice to do to our Chinese hosts and to acknowledge their help and their assistance in this process. Anyway, let's get to the opening ceremony outfit. Here's the table with all the different elements of the outfit lined up. And it's, as you can see, it's actually quite intricate. There's a bunch of individual pieces that had to come together to make it possible. And I know a lot of comparisons have been made to Pita of Tonga, who he really popularized the shirtless flag bearer at opening ceremonies. And so a lot of credit does go to him for making it popular. But I do want to point out that this was also done by Team American Samoa in 2012 for the London Olympics. We had one of our athletes, Nathaniel Tuamoheloa, who was a wrestler at those games, and he came out with a very similar outfit. So we actually looked at photos from the 2012 games, and so some of the color patterns that we chose were based on Nathaniel's outfit from those Olympic games. So in many ways, it was an homage to him. But I think it's a great tradition in general, just for the Pacific Islands and for Polynesia and Melanesia as well, to have the shirtless flag bearer. I think it's fun, and people seem to really enjoy it, and it's a great tradition to continue. I should also say that in 2021, for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, Vanuatu also had a shirtless flag bearer, Riori, who I'd actually run across in 2019. He was in American Samoa for a rowing competition, and we crossed paths. I was doing volunteer work as one of the safety boats for the sailing club on that day. And then I ended up befriending him at the Tokyo Olympics as well, and I got to see him in his shirtless opening ceremony outfit too. And it just looked so cool, looked so fun. And then this opportunity came up to do it in the Winter Olympics. So that also played into it as well. But let's start with the different items here. So the bottom piece was actually this cloth. It's a finely woven cloth mat, and it's called an toga. And this goes on the bottom layer, and it was then affixed to my waist with a rope. But in between the rope and the toga was this cloth. It's a tapa cloth. It's called a Siapo, and it's made from the bark of a mulberry tree. So if you actually look, you can see the fibrous material from the mulberry tree, and it's really highly prized in Samoan culture, and it's actually really quite expensive. We're renting it specifically for the Olympics here, but the pattern on it made for a really striking visual ensemble, and then that was secured by the rope on top, and that mostly comprised the lower half. But then we, on top of that, we had the one extra layer, the red feathers. That's a very symbolic part of the outfit too. These are faux feathers, but traditionally they would be made out of actual bird feathers. But because they had to be transported so far and they had to be affixed properly, that we had to go with the faux feathers right there. For the upper body elements, so around my neck, we had this piece right here. This is called an Ulanifo, and it's essentially a choker. And traditionally, it's made from small boar's tusks. These ones are faux boar's tusks, though, just because that's what we were able to get on short notice. We did, however, have real, legit boar's tusks for my armbands, and that's also a very traditional move too. And so these are bona fide boar's tusks that I wore on my arms. The other element, though, that I had around my upper body was this piece right here. And this piece is called the Ulafala. And so it's a red shoulder covering, and it's traditionally worn by chiefs for ceremonial purposes. But we've also worn it in opening ceremonies in the past. Our flag bearer for opening ceremonies at Tokyo, Tanu, he actually wore something very similar to this too. And then our female flag bearer as well, Tilali, she wore a woman's version, which is a little bit tighter. It's not as loose. It doesn't have as much length to it. And that was worn more as a choker. And then lastly, on the headpiece, this is what I wore. It's actually not fixed. You have to tie it in the back. It hangs loose at the end. But this thing is called a fuiono. And on top of it are rare silver nautilus shells. Actually look quite beautiful. And it has to be put in a very specific position on the head where the piece has to be centered on the top above the eyes and right on the nose. And so what's really cool is in Christy's drawing, she actually replicated that as well. And then lastly, this piece, the Sei Fulumoa, which is attached inside the silver nautilus shell piece, just on the side. And that matches the red feathers that go around the waist too. So once that was all done, I was able to walk through the stadium, and only about 200 meters. So you walk right down the center. There's all these lights shining at you. You can't actually see much just because there's so many bright lights. The only thing I could make out at first were the Olympic rings that were hanging above me, and walked right through, trying not to shiver, just trying to keep the flag straight and not get all twisted up, which was most of what I was thinking about as I was marching through. Less so about the cold or the outfit or anything else. And luckily no wardrobe malfunctions happened. Walk through the stadium, you follow the person who's holding up the sign for your team, and then at the end of that walk, you hand the flag off to another volunteer, and then they show you to your seats in the stadium so that you can watch the rest of the opening ceremonies. And after that was done, I actually got a huge reception from the Chinese spectators. They had a whole section of the stadium, and they started cheering wildly for me. So I gave them a wave, and then the Great British team, they were seated above me in the stadium too, and they started cheering like crazy for me because I was teamed up with them actually for the skeleton race. And so I think maybe some of my friends on Team GB started that, and it just culminated in a huge cheer. And so I waved to them, and then I just started taking off the layers and getting back in some warm, properly winter clothing. And again, my core body temperature was fine, but I knew that it would start sinking really quickly. So had to get into some warm clothes. I had some snow pants, and then I had this great parka. This has been sort of my big, thick winter coat ever since our delegation arrived. So this is made by Columbia, and it has their signature Omni Heat lining, which is supposed to reflect a bunch of your body heat back into you. And they also adorned it with the American Samoa logo on the side, as well as the tattoo design that I use for all of my athletic competitions. It's on my speed suit, it's on my running sleeve, and so it was really awesome of them to be able to put that on this jacket as well. And they don't sponsor me, they're not paying me to say any of this. They were just really kind enough to donate all this gear to our team in this mad last minute scramble. But this is a really warm jacket, and I was very thankful to have it and to be able to put it on after that wild adventure. Anyway, that's about it. After that, it spiraled into this wild media campaign with the IOC's media staff. I had NBC interviews with Lewis Johnson after both of my race days, which was a huge honor as well. I sold Lewis Johnson a copy of my book during one of the primetime interviews. He was very gracious. He agreed to Venmo me for it, and I hope he enjoys it. And then it's just been one interview after another. The day after my race, I think I had 4 straight hours of media interviews, which is new to me. I'm sure for plenty of the other big star athletes and gold medal winners, they're accustomed to that, but it was totally foreign to me. I ended up wearing out my voice, and I had to take 48 hours off after that just because I'm not used to talking that much. And I've actually got another 4 or 5 hour block starting this afternoon in about an hour of just straight media interviews. And it's everywhere from Germany to Hong Kong to Canadian Broadcasting Corporation to just a global audience that I'm doing my best to stay on top of. I've been so sleep deprived in the past couple days just because there's been so much going on. Because at the same time, I'm trying to enjoy this Olympic experience as much as possible too. But that's it for now. I do want to have some other videos made on the other Olympic villages, trying to get out there, campaign a little bit, and just enjoy myself. It's a very special moment and a very special time, and I want to treasure it as much as possible. So thanks for watching, thanks for joining, and see you next time.